Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Wellbeing Podcast, where we talk about all things health, fitness, real estate, and entrepreneurship. I'm your host. My name is Zach Bush. Today, I have a very special guest, good friend of mine, owner, CrossFit Generation. We go way back, so it's good to finally have you on the podcast. Barry, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Pleasure being here.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we've been friends for a very long time. I'm sure we'll go into a little bit of that. 17 years, 18 years at this point. I was a sophomore in high school when I started training with you before you opened up CFG. I remember, being at my elementary school playground, which isn't even there anymore. They knocked it down and built houses on it. But I remember doing that and doing box jumps on a bench and wall balls that were just basketballs filled with sand. So as you're kind of looking up at the ball when it's hitting the wall, you're getting sand rain in your eyes, like back to like the old glory days. So obviously I know a ton about you. Why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on kind of who you are and what got you to where you are today?
Okay. Well, again, thanks for having me on, Zach. So I've always been involved with health and fitness. I started just exercising when I was about 12 years old, and I just fell in love with it. My brother, who's 5 years older than me, had weights and everything in his room, and I just like started lifting weights. He had a solo flex. You probably don't even know what that is, do you? Yeah,
Nope.
it's just like this banded thing from the '80s, and it was awesome. But it was in the corner of his room, and you could, I would just lift with him weights and solo flex. Anybody like 40 and up knows what a solo flex is. But anyways, I started working at the Northampton Tennis and Fitness Club, and just kind of working out there and doing some desk work, and I was vacuuming tennis courts and that whole thing. And then I went to college and studied communications and health fitness management with a minor in nutrition. And then I just started managing kind of like little gyms. I worked for the National Institutes of Health, and I managed their gym for a little while. And then I got hired by Elevation Corporate Health, which was Mid Atlantic Corporate Health at the time. And that's where I met Jocelyn, my wife and other owner of CrossFit Generation. I left there, came home, and just kind of wanted to start something on my own, but I didn't know how to do it. So I got another corporate fitness job with Health Fitness Corporation. And during that time, a employee introduced me to CrossFit, and the rest is history. I'll never forget the email that I got from this lady, and I checked it out and I studied and analyzed it, read all the articles, read all the journals, started doing it in a corporate gym. I remember doing like pull-ups, like trying to kip on a cable crossover machine, and the whole thing was just shaking back and forth. So I was, the old school CrossFit gyms were just kind of up and coming. So I didn't know where
Yeah.
any of them were, and I would do them in a corporate gym, and it was actually quite amusing to do it in a corporate gym. And then I told my boss about it, and we went to a CrossFit Philly, which is not around anymore, in this 1,000 square foot rundown warehouse. And ever since I stepped foot into that, I fell in love with it. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And then I put my entire savings into opening up my first gym with Jocelyn back in 2007 or eight, around there. It's been a long time, man. Um, and then here we are 17 years later, still thriving, still kicking and evolving. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my story. I played sports and stuff too, but whatever. I was never really good at anything. So it doesn't really matter. I played soccer in college, but other than that, like whatever. Like it's really just fitness is my life and it's my livelihood, and I have a really big passion for it, as you very well know. So that's kind of a little history.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, when did CrossFit really start? Like 2005, 2006. So you were like right on the ground floor of it, right?
I think, well, Glassman at the time said 2001 was when he started training people that way in Santa Cruz. But I think the really big like explosion, I think, of it on the internet was around 2004 or five. Um, and when I found it, it was, like I said, it was such a dinosaur. I mean, these guys were working out in their garages and just ordering any free weight equipment on the internet, off of whatever website or York Barbell or whatever they can get their hands on, to do these like crazy workouts that were all internet based. And I thought it was going to be a fad. I really did. I was like, oh, this won't last. No, it's pretty
Yeah.
much the biggest thing in fitness, I would think, right now, right?
It's revolutionized it for sure. I mean, you have, all the Orange
Yeah,
Theories and the F45s kind of trying to emulate what CrossFit's built. And we'll go into like,
absolutely.
the community portion of it, right? What I think is better
Mhm.
than what, Planet Fitness or even LA Fitness does is the community portion. That's the big part of it. And I like what you said, going back to like the 1,000 square foot, like CrossFit Philly, like that's like, people don't realize that are just getting into CrossFit now what like the OG, where the word like where the box term comes in at, and the garage gym,
Mhm.
like that's really where it started, where it was just like you said, throw whatever we can get that works and we'll figure it out as we go, rather than what you see now is all the rogue rigs and the nice assault bikes and equipment and stuff like that. Like we didn't have that when we first started.
No,
I started with sand-filled basketball for my medicine
getting
ball.
sand in your eye while you were
Right.
throwing it up against you can't never take that away, right? It's just
No.
awesome stuff. But
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
it's
think,
become yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I feel like, for lack of a better word, it's definitely come more fancier CrossFit, right? With the equipment, like you said, it's a lot more, um, mainstream and fancier. But because there's something really special and unique about being an OG, and like you said, like seeing where CrossFit gyms are now as opposed to where they used to be, and the equipment, what it looked like, where you were ordering from. I mean, I remember, man, getting bumper plates from Alabama, and like getting box jumps from Illinois. Like, you were just ordering wherever you can get stuff to build this CrossFit gym. But there's something so dear to my heart about that process, and where it all came from. And I love that I have that in my back pocket to sit on, just to know it's so easy now. Like I texted the group today. Like, I ordered another dog sled from Rogue. It'll be here in like 3 days. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You had to search all over the place to get a sled, because it wasn't a thing. But
Yeah, we had those little yellow sleds that were like 6 inches tall and like hurt your back just to like
yep,
kind of have to push them.
yeah. I remember when we used to push them outside and the sparks would fly because the oh god, that was
Good old
awesome.
days. The good old
Yeah, the
days.
good old days. Fantastic. I was like, oh my god, there's fire. There's fire underneath.
Yeah, if we ever had a gas leak or anything, like a fuel leak or anything that was on the parking
Right.
lot, it would have been an issue.
Right. Or for grilling and propane. Not good. Not good.
So what about
Oh,
like when you said somebody's kind of sent you the information, you dug into like what
mhm.
the original articles, what about it like really was like, this is it, like this is what I want to do.
I was so tired of the cookie cutter corporate fitness machines, stability balls. Zach, man, I was teaching like step classes and like stability ball classes. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And
Mhm.
I was 23, 24, like this young guy with way more hair, you know what I mean? And like just trying to figure out what he wanted to do in the industry. But those were the only jobs that really like had salaries. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you didn't have to, get clients, right? They just hire you to run classes and stuff. So I was doing these for employees. But what attracted me to it, I think, was just I was sick and tired of the cookie cutter. And along with being a free weight guy growing up, I knew that this worked, and I knew I needed something different. And by God, this was so different. And I
Mhm.
liked that it was edgy. And as you know about me, I don't like conformity at all. So I like being, above the fray and out on the fringe. So this was definitely that. And I like that kind of, you know, kind of like ruthless and aggressive nature of it too. There's something, badass about it that I liked. That attracted me to it big time.
Mhm. Yeah, especially like that's prime age. Like you see a lot of people like 25, 26, like 30
Hmm.
getting into CrossFit being like, yeah, like this is fun. Like that's where I was, when I was, I started as a supplement to soccer, supplement to swimming, which I'm super
Yep.
grateful for. It was the first time I'd ever lifted or anything like that. And there's
Hmm.
confidence that comes with going from the gym to the field for sure.
And especially I talked to the Happer Horsham swim coach because I still train that team. They're entering their 13th year, and he's on the same page with me, this stuff. But I just feel like what you said, there's training in that environment. I feel like as a kid, and I never had that. You know what I mean? Like, and I envy those kids now, and some of them don't even
Mhm.
realize what they're getting. Um, just that nature of going. and that environment and training in that environment gives you such swag. You mentioned the word confidence and self-esteem. Like you're training in like a really like rugged, cool space. This is not like, an athletic club with machines, right? Which is what I was sick of. And I love that I'm able to provide that for kids because it made such a drastic effect on me growing up that I can't even imagine the mindset of these kids that, these 12 to 18-year-olds on the swim team specifically that just come in and over 4 years or 5 years because they started eighth grade, right? And see them progress and our gym is super cool. You've trained soccer players, you've gotten comments from parents about how different the kids are on the field since doing this. There's a swag, man, and there's no arguing that. When you train at a CrossFit gym and in that environment and in that community, like you just are another level person mindset wise.
Yeah, 100%. And that's my favorite part. Well, there's a lot of great things about it, right? That's why I'm so passionate. I think that's why you see a lot of passion about CrossFitters too, where it also kind of, you get the typical thing where it's the swing the other way. Now people are like so passionate about it where it's like, how do you know somebody CrossFits is like, they tell you like within 30 seconds of talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's part of the reason of it too, is right. They love it so much that they want to talk about it. And I think like, yes, I love it. And I think everybody should do it for a multitude of reasons. But for me, I think what it's done too is it's opened the doors, and we kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, is to other options outside of it, right? CrossFit covers Olympic weightlifting, it covers gymnastics, it covers monostructural, you got running, and combining all of those things. So it's going in there going, I don't really know what I want to do fitness wise, but I know that I'm going to be coached. I know that I'm going to have workouts given to me and programmed for me. And maybe I don't like CrossFit as a whole, but maybe I find my passion in weightlifting. I mean, we've seen it, right? You've seen people being like, I don't like CrossFit, but I want to weightlift, and I only want to weightlift. And I know that like the Olympic weightlifting community, USAW, has seen a big increase in weightlifters because of CrossFit. And so while CrossFit might not be the right thing for you, that's totally fine. My thing is get in there and do it if you're not sure what to do, because you might find something that you eventually want to do. And ultimately everybody should be doing something.
Exactly. And just moving. And I mean, we'll probably get into this, but like you can't compete at that high level forever. So I just think CrossFit just takes care of, you mentioned Olympic weightlifter to distance runner. It just forges everything into one pocket, and you kind of get the best of every world of fitness within CrossFit, whether you like it or not. And I just think it adheres to not only the weightlifter, but also, like I said, the distance runner, and it brings it all together into one hybrid program. And I think that's what I love about it. You know what I mean? Because it takes every entity of fitness and smashes it together, which is awesome.
Yeah, it gives you that ultimate flexibility, that ultimate customization of doing whatever, whenever. Like you said, you were getting tired of doing the step classes and the, all that stuff. Like there's only so much you can do with the step, right? Like you can put different music to it, I guess, but like, it's like, you got to step up and step down and jump up and jump down. But it's just like the monotony of it. And people doing that, like you can only sustain doing that same thing for so long. So it's like, I'll do it for a year or two. And then what? Am I going to stop working out altogether potentially?
Right, exactly. And you mentioned too, I think it's whether you like it or not, you mentioned something like that. And I just think people show up to a CrossFit gym because you said it's programmed for them. They know what they're getting. They know that it's smart. They know that they're going to get a good workout. And do people cherry pick? Absolutely. And that whatever, people do what they do, but they come in and they're like, I love that I don't have to think. I could come in, I have my workout, the warm-ups plan, the workouts plan. I'm going to get good music, especially in my classes, but we could talk about that too. It's such a special, I keep saying it's a special place, man. It really is to have just people come in and just almost like it's automatic. It's just a part of their day, regardless of what the workout is. And like we've evolved, you see it. We customize every day for people. Like if someone comes in and says, oh, you say weightlifting. Like if someone's like, I don't feel like doing snatches today. I'm like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And then you just try to find something that kind of mimics the same movement. So they're getting this, eliciting the same effect as other people are doing the snatch gets, and then they leave happy. It's all about relationships, community, making people happy, making them feel a part of something, and giving them a good workout. We want to make it the best hour of their day, right, dude? Like that's what our job is. So
yeah, and they're like you said, they don't want to think. Like they have enough going on. They have a family. They have a job. Like it's just like I want to work out. I don't want to. I think the biggest hurdle is that people are trying to pick the perfect workout program or lifting program, and at the end of the day,
right.
it's like just showing up and doing it. And so when you pay more for a CrossFit gym, but I would pay any amount more, so I don't have to worry about finding the right program or anything like that. And then
Right.
on top of that, if you get hurt halfway through that program, right? Maybe you're doing the shoulder focus program and maybe you strain something in your shoulder and now it's like, I got to refigure something else out. Well, guess what? You talk about modifying it to whatever you're at, right? Whether it's something you just don't want to do or it's something you physically can't do or shouldn't be doing. Now we
Right.
can make sure that you can come in and we'll work around, like give you the same stimulus and making sure you're getting that workout rather than just going, I hurt my shoulder and I was in a shoulder program. So now I'm going to sit at home and watch TV.
Right. And I tell everything you just said is right. And I tell people just show up. Like you can always move. Like if you have a shoulder problem, you can always move. If you have a knee problem, you can always move. Just show up. You're paying us to help you get fit regardless of what your level's at and regardless of what type of ailments you might have. Just show up. Simple as that.
Yeah, and that's why I love CrossFit gyms in general, specifically our gyms. I mean, the range of people, right? Athletic levels, age levels, ability levels, right? I mean, I don't know what our oldest member is, probably in their late 60s, early 70s.
Gloria's 65. I think 65 is the oldest.
Yeah. So you can work with Gloria, who's 65. We can do the same workout, and somebody who's in the middle 35, and then someone who's 18 just graduated, like working in college. Like we're all doing the same workout. It's just at different levels, different intensities. Maybe Gloria's scaling the weight or the distance on the run, and this other person's scaling up the weight. Like they're just at different points. So I think that's another great benefit of it, of just being like, hey, we can make this work for whoever wants to come in.
Right. Yeah, but and also that takes good coaches, man. Look at our team we have, right? Like we have so much combined experience. And am I doting on our gym? Why wouldn't I? But like the ability to, CrossFit has been called a cookie cutter program as well. It has, because like, everyone's doing the same workout. Yes. However, like you can modify, great word, you can scale to make it benefit any person at any level. And we have the coaches that have the ability to, on the dime, give somebody what they need. And that's not easy to do. And I'd be hard pressed to find a lot of CrossFit gym owners that know how to do that as well as we do, where we can just, all right, let's do this instead of that. It has to be on the fly. This isn't planned out stuff, right? You don't know who's coming to class, right? Dude, somebody emailed me yesterday. When did we squat? Wednesday. It was Wednesday. They emailed me Wednesday at 2:00. I'm going to the 3. My knee hurts. I can't do anything. What should I do? And literally it said help in big letters with exclamation. From 1 to 3, I'm home. So like I was on my email. I emailed right back. She goes, thank you so much. I wasn't going to go today, but now I am. Right? Like exactly. And I love that we can provide that. I didn't go, I don't know, just show up anyway. You know what I mean? Like to be able to provide people with that is huge for retention. Huge.
Yeah. Most of our coaches have been there since right after when you opened it. So we just did that, we just did the Fall Brawl, our in-house, team competition that we have in October, November. And, we were talking about, we did a coaches versus a community, and we were talking through like, hey, yeah, we got some nagging injuries, but we're able to work through it. But we have, whatever it was, 100 years of experience between all of us, because we've been doing it for 17 years between the 6 or 7 of us.
It's a long time. You can't fake experience, man. Right? Don't mess with the coaches.
So
next year we'll get them. Next year we'll get them.
Yeah. So we talked about why it's so great. Like somebody who's never done it before and is thinking about doing it. Like, what's your advice to them who's who wants to come in, who wants to do it but is hesitant?
Have you ever heard anybody say, I have to get in shape to do CrossFit?
Yep. All the time.
Right. That's what people say. And it's like, no, you get in shape by doing CrossFit. Right. And then we talked about the scaling and the modifying. I have a gentleman starting on Monday, a free trial. He was recommended by another member, had just goes to Planet Fitness, kind of wanders around just like everybody else at Planet Fitness does, not knowing what to do. And I said, look, let's do a free trial. Let's see where you're at. We're going to modify everything. We'll give you whatever modifications that you need to make, and let's progress that way. I mean, personal training is great, but can everybody afford it? No. Right. So I think it goes back to what we can do as a coaching staff. If you've never done it, go in and have a sit down with the owner or a coach, talk about what we do. Start there. Starts with a conversation about what you're looking for, whether you need nutrition, maybe you want, maybe you do want some personal training. We have cross fitness, right? The lower level class. Maybe you start in cross fitness, but it all depends on their availability too, right? He's only able to come at 9 a.m. So he's going to come at 9 a.m., which is a great class to come to. It is, it is. So, I'm just going to have him take a week. It's going to be a lighter class. I'll know how to kind of talk him through things and see where he's at. And it's just communicating with them, how they're doing, what they need. I don't want to say, I used to say you don't want to get thrown to the lions, right? By going too hard, too fast. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to prepare you except by just starting. Just start moving. And whether it be, what do we say? Any movement is good movement. Just come in and move. If hypothetically, if everybody else is running 400 meters, walk 100 meters, right? Come in and move. If people are doing back squats, we'll have you do air squats to a ball or a box. I'm just throwing things out there, right? If they're doing dumbbell, or if they're doing barbell shoulder press, let's have you sit down and do seated dumbbell press. And that's the whole idea about fitness fitness, the spectrum is so large of how you can get started. It really is. And I think there's no better place than a CrossFit gym that knows what they're doing with people. Because having them sit on machines is not going to help them move better. It's not. It's not. Walking is great. It is. But it's not going to get them stronger. Is it an important part of all this? Absolutely. But to get started, it's just literally starting. Start moving the way you should be moving. It sounds weird, but that's true. That's what I told that guy. I'm like, just come in and let's just have you start moving, man. Start building some muscle, right? Start exercising, right? It's true.
So, yeah, it's funny it's funny you asked about that, or the you need to get in shape to do CrossFit. I think CrossFit just actually created a series of posts or Instagram things about, but that same thing, it's I need to get in shape to do CrossFit, and it crossed it out and said, I get in shape by doing CrossFit. It's funny that you said that, because it's literally just popped up today. And I really want to highlight too, what you said is yes, it's important to just come in and move, but you also talked about how they should have a conversation with a coach, and maybe it's with a couple of gyms too, even, right? Because each gym has its own community vibe, its own culture within that, its own levels of experience with coaching staff. So going in and having that conversation, a good gym, finding a good gym is going to be important that fits with where you're at and what you're looking for. And so that's super important. I think you kind of brushed over because but it's super, I wanted to highlight that. It's talk to the people and get a feel for is this person trying to push me towards? Like you said, we're not putting them balls to the wall right away. Hey, let's start snatching. Let's max snatch week one. It's no, we're not doing that. So I think it's important to recognize that too. Just have the conversation and still make that step to go in.
And to touch on your point too, talk to multiple gyms. Because Zach, look at the evolution of our gym, right? We've been doing this for 17 years, and we've changed immensely in our approach, right? But there's one that's 10 minutes away. That's a super competitive CrossFit gym. We're not a super competitive CrossFit gym. Can we hold our own? Sure. Do we have that little bit of a vibe in classes? Sure, in some of them. But at the end of the day, I feel like we are definitely more of a general population, sustainable approach to CrossFit for years to come, not what can I do in the next 6 months to be the best I can be at, right? That's what it is. And I don't ever tell people that we're a super competitive gym. I like when people come from super competitive gyms because they're burnt out. I love that, because you can still do this. I have conversations with a lot of former competitors, right? In quotes, right? Competitors. And where they're at in their journey and how you really have to, and I hope we can talk about that, like turning a corner of what am I doing this for, right? Why am I pushing myself so hard? I can't recover because I'm older now. I've been doing this for X amount of years. Yeah, because you can't. If that were the case, like you would be in the best shape of your life at like 70. You know what I mean? Like if you always got better, right? If you're always getting better, then it's not going to happen that way. So you have to, swallow some pride and say like, all right, I still want to, I love the way I love what CrossFit is. I love the workouts, but I can't do it the way I used to do. So I want to find a gym that maybe allows me to still do it in a good community. Or I want to compete. I want to try to make it to the quarterfinals of the Open or whatever, we're probably not for you because that's not what we do, Now, granted, we have a lot of open gym times that many gyms don't have for you to do that. But, I think overall it's like you said, it's having the conversation. What is it exactly this gym? What are its values, right? What do they focus on? What's the vibe, like you said? What's the community like? Who are the people, So what do you promote? It's all those things you talked about. Then you just got to feel for the person. You got to feel for the owners, the coaches, and also have them talk to members. That's why I love giving free weeks out because then they really come to multiple come to different class times, talk to different members, ask them questions because that's how you really get to feel. You get to feel by connecting with people.
Yeah, and new members. I know, like I love when I see new members come in. I know other members in our classes love new members coming in. Like everybody comes up, says hi, like asks where you're from, what you're doing, like all that stuff. Like people are super friendly, even dropping into other gyms, right? My parents go to North Scottsdale. So like I'm in there and everyone's like, oh, like, who are you? Where are you from? Like, so people are super interested in that. So I think sometimes people see like people heavy snatching or doing kipping, pull-ups and stuff like that. And they get a little intimidated when it's really, for the most part, like you don't know the experience that the person's had, but they are intimidated by that when really it's just mostly just normal people just kind of coming in for a little bit and then just different levels. So if like the intimidation portion of like, oh, I can't do that yet, like bring a friend. Like I think that's important too. Like maybe, I've met my wife through CrossFit. I've met some of my best friends through CrossFit now. So like it's nothing wrong with trying to drag a friend to it. And if that's what's holding you back is you're a little intimidated, have somebody come with you and do it. And little do you know, there's been a lot of times where somebody's done that. Their friend goes, this isn't for me. And then that person stays. And now their closest friends are at our gym. Like I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, that's the friend joins, but the person who expressed interest does not join.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And I hear what you said. Like I get emails. Jocelyn, the other owner, and my wife, like she emails like people that have done free trials or have been a member for like a month just to check in and see if they're enjoying themselves. It's really touching, getting in touch with people. And one of the best feedbacks, and I love seeing this, is your members are so welcoming. Man, if that right there, what else do you want to hear? Like, somebody's gonna be like, man, that guy really he eye rolled me when I was like squatting, and it really made me feel uncomfortable. Like, oh, I don't want to hear that. But all your members are so nice and welcoming. I had a great time. Like that's what you want to hear as an owner. I mean, what else do you want to hear? It just makes me sleep better at night. Well, when I do sleep, but anyways. But yeah. So what you were gonna say something else?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier too, like there's different stages in anything, and obviously in life in general. There's different stages, right? I mean, even in careers too, and like entrepreneurship, like where I'm at, I'm in my early 30s, so I'm still like I like to push the limit a little bit. But I'm not to the point where I was even a couple of years ago, where I'm lifting. Like, hey, I want to focus on lifting. I'm lifting 5-6 days a week for an hour and a half a day. That was before I had a kid. So ever since my son was born, it's been like, let me just get to the gym. I'll push myself some days. Some days I'm just going to show up and move for a little bit. I don't really care how I do in the open or if I make the quarterfinals. Like anything above and beyond is just icing on the cake. So even just for me over the last few years, I've seen the transition from, being more competitive, it really being my only responsibility, to kind of a more relaxed approach. And I know my dad's done the same thing. He went to the games as a master's athlete for, a few years in a row. And now he's just like, he got burnt out from doing it. And it shifted from like, let me work out for 2 hours a day to I'm just going to go in and do my 45 minutes, scale whatever workouts I need to scale. What has that process been, or what has that transition been after doing it for so long for you? And how have you managed and reacted to those changes?
Well, let me ask you a question. Then I'll answer that. How do you feel? Right? You've gone from that,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've had a son, you have a family, and now what your approach? Like, how are you feeling? I'm curious. Like, how do you feel about that corner that you needed to turn at this phase in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's definitely been hard in some ways, because when we do like a heavy single lift, or when it comes to a competitive atmosphere like the open, I don't feel as prepared as I used to. So like from a
Sure.
competitor standpoint, from an athlete, being an athlete my whole life, it's hard mentally to get over that. But then when it comes to the day-to-day living, it's a relief to not feel like I need to push myself. And now that I have other responsibilities, I can't exactly risk getting injured trying to push myself, trying to push that snatch. Right? I had shoulder surgery, not really CrossFit related, but I had shoulder surgery. I can't risk having my arm in a sling for 8 weeks and then 9 months of PT to get through that. So it's a relief in the day to day, the more important parts of my life. Because ultimately, right now, what I'm trying to do is stay in shape so I can be there for my wife, my son, and my future kids, not only this year, next year, but in the next 40 years when I'm in my 70s. I want to be able to have grandchildren and great grandchildren. So as hard as it is to make that adjustment from a competitor and kind of letting that part go, I know long term what I'm going for. And that's where it's like, okay, like things are all good.
Yeah. And that's such a good response. And I think it sounds like you're just really training by feel, almost like in
Mm-hmm.
a very intuitive approach. And I think that answers the question for me too. And I think that I kind of had a feeling you were going to say that, because I think I mentioned earlier, if we were to keep getting better and better and better, when you are 70 with grandkids, you essentially should be winning the CrossFit Games, right? That's kind of what in the 20 to 25-year-old category, because you're that much better, right?
Yeah.
No, it's been a really, I mean, I've talked to you at length about my journey, just personally, not just right now, but like it's been, I was super into it. I remember training with Matt Giordano from CrossFit Newtown. We were doing 2-3 days. We were our team made regionals for 3 years. Um, and then I started having, you mentioned the word children, right? And that takes it takes your life and completely blows it up, right? In good and bad ways. Um, and, I had to really take a step back into like the commitment I was taking into how I was looking, right? Playing the part as the owner, being so super fit all the time, which is a mind meld in itself. Um, and balancing being a dad, being a husband, being an owner, being a friend, and just being there for everybody in the gym as much as I could. And it definitely like spiraled me, as you know, that we talked about. And it took a lot of time to turn the corner of, I love CrossFit. Like I love the workouts. I don't ever see me doing anything else, because I like change a lot. And that's probably why I like CrossFit so much, because it's different all the time. It's like, exercise for those that can't focus on things. But anyways, but yeah, it was a really tough road, and I've had lengthy conversation with Jocelyn about, what am I doing? Where am I at in my journey? And I train intuitively now too, and I think that's the approach. And this week in particular, man, it feels like Jocelyn was saying just today. She was like, "This feels like the week that never ends," and some weeks feel like that. And I feel pretty beat up this week for some reason. And I'm just like, all right. So today I just bench press and did some curls today. I didn't even feel like doing a WOD. And guess what? That's okay. And at the end of the day, no one cares. No
Yeah.
one cares that the owner is not doing the WOD he programmed. I do all the other ones. I can have a day.
Mhm.
So I think I've really gotten over the hump lately in the past probably 3 or so months of saying, you know what, I just want to enjoy this journey and enjoy waking up as early as I do, starting my day with CrossFit, maintaining that discipline and consistency throughout my entire life, and being an example to not only like my gym members, but to my kids, you know, and holding myself accountable as I go through this. And I don't want to not enjoy it. I want to keep enjoying it, because if I'm not enjoying CrossFit, how am I supposed to promote it as a gym that does CrossFit? Like that's, you're being hypocritical about what your product is. You have to believe in your product and have a passion about it. And I still do. I think more now than ever after 17 years, I've reignited myself because I think I've turned that corner, Zach. I think can honestly say like, I'm not competing with myself or anybody else anymore. I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying working out again. I don't need to be the best person in the gym. I don't need to be the strong. I never was the strongest person in the gym, but I just want to maintain some strength, right? And not, like you said, I don't want to get hurt, man. Like my knee's buggered up today, man. Like I played tennis with Jocelyn on Fridays. Not today. We went to lunch instead. You know, it's like, I couldn't even, literally my knee's all buggered up and all right, cool. So I'm not doing the WOD today. So I hope that kind of gives you like some in-depth into like what I'm saying as far as, where I'm at with everything. And yeah.
Yeah, I think, and like purposely, like that's the answer that I know is the right answer, right? Like, there's not always like a right or wrong, but like that's what it is, and it's hard to get past that mental block. Like it's the transition for an NFL athlete to be retired. Then what do? Right? You've had that identity as a competitor for so long, and you've had that athletic competitive drive. It's hard to change that mindset. So when you go for something that's just a hobby, to like make that switch is super difficult. But sometimes you have to, like your body tells you need to. I was listening, or I saw a clip from somebody. They were talking about, I think she was an Olympic runner or sprinter, but she talked about her coach always told her like the rule of thirds, where a third of the time you're going to feel great, amazing, things are going to go awesome. A third of the time you're just going to feel like okay, like things aren't awesome, but things aren't bad either. And a third of the time you're going to feel like this week for you potentially, like just like one of those things where it's like, I don't really feel that great. Like things are just kind of dragging, things are going along, but it's like, that's the balance that you want. If you're 2/3 things are going terrible, maybe you're pushing yourself too hard and you need to back off, right? Or if you're 2/3 things are great, like maybe we can push ourselves a little bit more. Like that's just kind of like the mental gauge that you can have to check, am I in the right space right now? Or do I need to make any changes?
I like that a lot. Thank you. Yeah, because it's because everybody you know this. People just, they think that they're going to feel amazing all the time. Like, hello, pick up the phone. Like, it's not like ever. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. And you got to be able to deal with those storms that come your way, because it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time. And you're going to go through, feeling really crappy, right? And being able to do what you need to do, whether it's workout wise, nutritionally, sleep, and look at the other aspects of your life, not just exercise. Because people think they can out train all of this stuff when all you're doing is actually doing yourself a disservice. And it's like, you shouldn't do anything. Like you should go for a walk. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Like, no, you literally shouldn't be doing anything today. You are burnout, you're hurt, you haven't been sleeping. Yes. So let's do Fran. Perfect. Let's push it and let's not breathe for 5 minutes. Yeah. So you get exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And so you mentioned too, balancing things, right? So you're an owner of the gym, right? You have 3 kids, you have a wife, right? So you have all of those responsibilities pulling you in a bunch of different directions. How do you manage all of those directions? How do you manage being a good father, a good husband, a good business owner, and keeping yourself fit? Like a lot of different things pulling you in different directions. What's your take on like how to best effectively manage all of those?
I don't manage it. You knew I was going to say that. I think just focusing on what matters and not having any distractions. It's, you already said I'm not on social media. I've really cut my just screen time down in general. Overall, I'm not on my phone as much. I'm not on my computer as much. It's what matters is, I mean, it's not selfish. It's selfless. Like I take care of myself first. Like, as you know, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to come into the gym to exercise. That's how I want to start my day. Like, that's it. There's no question. After a cup of coffee. That's number one.
Always,
right?
Always.
Always. All right. And then it's, doing my normal morning routine after, coaching the classes and just having my morning. I work for pretty much like 3 hours before my family gets up. You know what I mean? And that's how I start my day. And I wouldn't change anything about my mornings. Like they are sacred to me more than you could possibly imagine. Um, but it's really focusing. What matters is my own well-being. All right. Second is my relationship with my wife, and third is my children. Like those are
Mhm.
my three things, and the fourth one is my gym. And when it comes down to it, those four things, like I have my extended family, my dad, and my in-laws, all that. But like those four things, they're my world.
Mhm.
And if I could really just focus on those four entities, like I can manage and balance because those are the four things that I value and I put everything I have into. Because I don't drink, I don't gamble, I don't play video games, like I don't do anything like that. So, and I'm not bragging, it's just my life. Like I'm not saying
No.
it's wrong to do those things, but that's just who I am as a person now and what I've evolved into my mid 40s. I'll be 45 next week or no, 2 weeks. So it's like this is where my life's at, and I find, like I said, I've turned a corner where like I really want to focus on those things without any other distractions
Mhm.
in my life. So I'm finding more balance in it because I'm not distracted by other things. I mean, to put it in a really matter of fact way.
Mhm. It's important to highlight that too, because that's kind of what I'm learning is that it does feel selfish to say, "Hey, I'm going to the gym," and you go before your family gets up, and I do the same thing sometimes too, where it's like, okay, it's not
Hmm.
really affecting anybody else. Everybody else is still sleeping, but
Sure.
like you can't take care of everybody else if you're not in the right physical state or the right mental state, because that's going to trickle down to everybody else. It's going to trickle down into
Hmm.
how you react and interact with your wife and how you interact and act with your kids, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
while it seems selfish, it's not, because now you can, if you've gotten up, if you've worked out, you've done a couple hours of work, whatever you need to get done for yourself
Hmm.
before anybody gets up. And now when everybody's up, I can be fully present. I've gotten taken care of myself without affecting anybody else. I can be a more effective father. I can be a more effective husband. And it's
Right.
hard to do that at first. And, not everybody wants to get up at 4 a.m. or can, but I think you're able to do that because you have those values and those priorities. Is I need to take care of
Hmm.
myself to be able to do that. And to do that, I need to get up at 4, and I'm energized to get up at 4 because I know what it does for me as a person.
Right. Yeah, and you have to know like what drives you, like what makes you thrive. Like what am I? And you have to be aware of this. People are, and I think it comes back to distraction again. People are so
Mhm.
distracted by other things they didn't even know their own self, and they're living for like other people before they're living for themselves. So it's like you said it. Like, how can you be the most effective person for the people you love the most if you don't even love yourself and you don't take care of yourself? Listen, I was there 100%. Like, I went through a lot of stuff. I know that I did. I'll fully admit it. No one's perfect, but like, I finally feel like now in my life at this point, I've gotten to that point and like, no, this is what matters. Like, get rid of distractions, get rid of the stuff that's not making you thrive, get rid of toxic relationships and all that stuff. And everything falls into place because you can really put every ounce of yourself into other things because you're also putting every ounce into your own self and taking care of yourself and doing the things that you need to do to thrive personally. And like you said, it just trickles down, man. It really does. It's a snowball effect. It's like the stone in the pond, right? Everything goes out, man. You're the stone, drop it in, and everything calls out. It's really special stuff.
Mhm. And you kind of you figure that out right over the years. What did you do anything specific, like any kind of mental activity or kind of like reflection, journaling, stuff like that, to get you to
Mhm.
figure those things out, right? Because like
Yeah.
it's not something where like half an hour of time would I could figure it out. Where it's like it's just going to take me time to kind of work through like what are my values, what do I want to prioritize, and
Yeah.
how do I want to prioritize it.
Yeah, no, I did. I tried a lot of tools. I mean, with your help, you introduced me to the morning miracle or miracle morning. Which one? What is it called again?
Miracle
Mir-
morning.
Miracle morning. I always flip them. Miracle morning, and I started journaling. I don't journal right now. I think it was a tool that really helped me to get to where I am. But I also found I'm a really deep person, as you know, and I feel like it was like causing me to think too much, oddly enough. So I don't journal anymore, but I do read a little bit in the morning. So I read some. Uh, it's called Clarity and Connection. It's Young Pueblo. It's kind of like some short prose poetry. that I read in the morning, a couple of pages of that to kind of like just do some inward thinking. I'm a big prayer person, so I do some prayer in the morning as well. Um, and then other than that, it's really, I think working out in the morning has also just mentally helped me. You turned me on to those savers, man. Like I was at 3 years ago. I think,
Mhm.
yeah, I think it was, oh my
Yeah.
God. 3 years ago is when I really started saying, and I'll never forget the first time I tried working out before I coached. It was, I'm not a big epiphany person, but that was an
Mhm.
epiphany where I'm like, oh my God, I felt amazing. And I'm like, I'm going to keep trying this to see if it works. And by God, here I am 3 years later, still waking up at 4 a.m. to come in and work out before class because it worked for me.
Mhm.
And, I think it's just like you said, it's not going to happen like that. It's not a light switch. You got to really figure out what makes you thrive. And you're going to be putting things in, taking them out, taking things out, putting them in. Like eventually, you're going to figure out what makes you thrive. And there's not any right or wrong way to do it. It's just, I mean, I could sit there and tell somebody to journal, or I could sit there and find a higher power and all that stuff. And they're like, I don't even know what. No, I'm not doing that. I mean, you could tell you what works for you, but if it doesn't work for the other
Mhm.
person, don't have them do it. And then it comes down to, it's like being a therapist, right? Like I think therapy also has its values. I see a therapist. It helps me out. I think just talking with somebody else, getting from seeing a professional person to help you. Also, there's a lot of value in that. So it all depends, man. I mean, I've had a lot of different tools over the past 3-4 years that I've used, and I think I'm starting to really find it. I really feel like I'm finding it now more and more, but it'll change because that's what life is. Life is always constantly changing. So, yeah.
Yeah, the 3 or 4 years, like it's not like I said, it's not instant. It's not 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 weeks, 3 or 4
Yeah.
months. Like it's going to take time. And you talked about, I could tell you what works for me, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So I think it's important to highlight that it's like you got to try them all. Like for me, journaling, meditation, I've tried them all, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Like, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm going to focus in on this, and so you have to
Right.
try it to know. Just like fitness, right? You have to try something to know you don't like it. Like I'm going to try
Hmm.
running for 30 days and no, I hate running actually. Let me do this instead, right? You don't know until you try it. So I think it's important to highlight that portion of it. Is like you've tried all of these things and you've gone through phases of them, and you know that you're going to
Hmm.
continue to go through different phases and things are going to ebb and flow through it.
Hmm.
How long would you say you would try something before you'd say, yes, this is working, let me dive into this a little bit more, or no, this isn't working, I need to remove it or substitute it with something else?
I think 3 months. I really do. I think 90 days is, you got to give it a whirl because, in terms that you probably know this from all the readings that you do, it's like 30 days is kind of you're motivated, right? 60 days, it's kind of becoming a little bit of a habit and you're seeing it working. And then 90 days, it's like almost like you start to master that habit and see if it's really taking effect. So I think 90 days of trying something consistently. I mean, it can't be hit or miss in 90 days. It has to be, let's just look at it going to the gym 3 days a week for 90 days. Most likely, if you do that, you're going to continue to go to the gym 3 days a week because
Mhm.
it's kind of like you're starting to master that habit and that consistency. Um, that's with nutrition too, right? Give something a 90-day to see if it works. I think 90 days would be to really see a change in what you're doing because 30 days doesn't change anything. It just gets you motivated and I think it's motivation and awareness is 30 days. Like, wow,
Mhm.
this is really something I need to work on, right? And if I stop it, then I'm going to go back to the way I used to be. So
Mhm.
90 is my answer.
I agree with that answer. Yeah, because you have that cycle of cool, I'm excited, and then it's like, oh, this is kind of and you kind of dip again, and then once you push through that, you kind of know, all right, I can
Hmm.
continue with this or go shift to something else. So it's completely fine to shift, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but 90
Hmm.
days for that habit to build, I completely agree with it.
But it's
Um,
also like habit too. Like, what does it become after that? What's after habit?
mhm,
Discipline. Like, it's just
mhm,
literally like after 90 days, I feel like it just becomes who you are. And then after 6 months, it's just what you do. You know what
mhm,
I mean? Right? It's just what you do. It's who you are. It's how you identify, right? With how you function as a human being. And everybody's different. And you guys
mhm,
have to embrace that. No one is Zach Bush. No one's Barry Weidner. It's you like what you like and you thrive off of what you thrive off. I do the same thing, right?
mhm.
So I could sit there and be like, no, no, you really need to do this. It's like when somebody tells me they want me to, oh man, you would really love this show on Netflix. Number one, I really don't even watch Netflix. Number two, how do you know I would really like this show? You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think too, like it becomes your identity, like you said, and it's like people are like, I don't know how you work out 5 days a week. I don't know how you find time for it. I don't know, how you get the motivation to do it. It's like, well, guess what? I'm not motivated a lot of the time, but it's just for me, it's become so much of a habit. 17 years of doing it 4, 5, 6 days a week for most of that time. I was just golfing with somebody last weekend, and I was like, did you get lessons? He's like, no, I've played 3,000 rounds of golf, so I'm just really good at it. And I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. He's like, how many CrossFit workouts have you done? And I was like, did the math, and I was like, I've done over 4,000 CrossFit workouts. He's like, that's probably why you're like proficient at it. So it's like just taking the time to do it just becomes who you are, to the point where it feels weird if I don't go to the gym, just because it's so ingrained in what I do.
Yeah, but that's so good, because you know how you feel when you do it, and when you feel. I mean, that's awareness. That's self-awareness. I mean, and self-awareness can only be mastered without having distractions, right? Like that's a fact, right? I love that. You're aware of how you feel. It's an organic response. When I go to the gym, this is how I feel. When I don't go to the gym, this is how I feel. Or, I mean, granted, there's planned rest days, don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, that's just what it is. It's because I love the sentence. It becomes who you are. It becomes your identity. And a lot of people don't have that. They don't.
Or not willing to put the time, energy, effort into creating that. It's not an easy road, right? It's simple. Everybody knows what to do, but if it were that simple or that easy to do, everybody would have a six-pack and be going to the gym all the time. Like, it would just be
right. Exactly. And 75% of the population would be obese. Right.
You mentioned you have a minor in nutrition. I know you do some nutrition coaching. Why don't you talk a little bit about the role in nutrition when it comes to just general health, fitness, and even being a good W-2 employee, good entrepreneur, good father, all that stuff. Like what's the highlights of nutrition in your mind?
I mean, nutrition, for what it's worth, like the nutrition is the foundation, right, of the pyramid, the CrossFit pyramid, just to bring that up. I think that thing is not highlighted enough. I think it has a lot of validity. Abs are made in the kitchen, all those saying, like, you can't outtrain a bad diet. There's a lot of cliches, right? But it's so true. Like, we talk about this a lot. How many people do we see working out and nothing ever changes? Because the other 23 hours out of their day is just not good enough. They're thinking they can get away with eating fast food and convenient food instead of cooking meals, right? And they think that they can work out that, right? Or they can out train that. It doesn't work that way. Nutrition is literally the foundation of your whole makeup. It really is. I mean, if you walked and did push-ups and your diet was rock solid, or your eating habits were rock solid, you would look phenomenal. You would. Like, you really would. All right, throw in some air squats for legs. That's fine. But you know what I mean? But no, you really would. It's literally, you talk about a six-pack. You're not getting a six-pack by doing 1,000 sit-ups. You're not. Nope. You're getting a six-pack by eating, an egg white or eggs and bacon and vegetables in the morning, right? With a boat ton of water, and then having something, a snack like yogurt and fruit, and then having a good lunch of chicken and vegetables. Like, it's consistency of eating those things all throughout the day, every day, right? With obviously leeway, because restriction's not the answer. But those that you talk about habits, it's like it's eating all of whole natural foods over and over again consistently is going to get you looking the best and feeling the best way, because working out's not going to do that. What does working out do? It just makes you feel terrible. Working out breaks you down. It does, right? And then what do you do when you sleep and when you eat well? It builds you up, and that's a fact too. Exercise is catabolic. It breaks it down. So, how do we how do we feel better from that? It's eating, right? Because you could work out, like I said, till you're blue in the face and have, Taco Bell. No wonder you're not recovering. You still feel like crap, because you're not eating well. So it's the foundation. That's the word. It's literally the foundation. And not having convenient foods. That's really what it is. Convenient meaning like go to like fast food places, already pre-made stuff. So.
Yeah, I love that. I agree 100%. It always comes back to consistency. It's the most important part. It helps you feel better, which will help you get to the gym, but you can't just go to the gym and hope that everything else lines up. And I know it's probably not like an easy, like black or white answer, but you coach a bunch of clients. What is like the one thing, like easy thing that somebody could start implementing? Like, hey, maybe I do go to the gym consistently, I'm not seeing any results. Like, what's the one thing that they're probably not doing that they could start implementing to start seeing some forward momentum when it comes to the nutrition side of things?
I would say 1A is eating breakfast. I think I cannot tell you how many people say that they don't eat breakfast. Now, I don't know how God's green earth you're not eating breakfast. Breakfast literally is break the fast of the whole. It doesn't. It boggles my mind, Zach. So I think breakfast is number one, and how much water they're drinking. I think that those are the two simplest things. And if I were to look at over the past 6 years of doing the nutrition program we have, there were the two things that I really like to focus on with people. What are you eating to start your day? And how much water are you drinking? And a lot of times it's subpar. And man, when we can get that going, man, it is a game changer with how they feel. It's a game changer because not only are they fed, but they're also hydrated in the mornings. Like some people don't even eat and they don't drink enough water, and then they feel, and what do they eat for lunch? Or what do they eat at 10 o'clock? Carbohydrates, because they have no energy, right? Because they have no protein, no fats, no water, and they're just completely just blah, right, to start their day. So breakfast and water, 1A, 1B. Those are the two things I would have people start with.
Yeah, water is just, like you said, it's such an easy thing. It's simple, doesn't mean it's easy, but it's such an easy thing to get started. Just have a bottle of water with you and drink it. You haven't eaten or drank anything in 6-8 hours potentially. Like, that's going to make you feel better right off the bat. And it's just such an easy thing to get. We have access to water as much as you could possibly need. So it's there and ready to go for you.
Yeah. And it boggles my mind how many people I see. If I go to Wawa for a coffee, at like 9 a.m., people are drinking Mountain Dew and a muffin. I'm like, how is this even, like, how are you functioning? Maybe they're not, but like, I don't get it, but it's also addiction. People are addicted to sugar. I mean, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. I think it's too. It's like what you said. They don't even, like, how are you functioning? It's like you don't even know you feel bad. I remember when I kind of made that shift in high school. We did the paleo diet. That was 14, 15 years ago at this point, when you having access to those different recipes and foods was a little more challenging. But I remember changing it and limiting the sugar that we had and just eating whole foods and quality foods. And we did it for 30 days. And there was no 2:30 crash. There was no I'm tired at 3 p.m. There was no like, oh, this workout feels terrible. Like, I felt great from the second I woke up to the second I went to sleep. My workouts felt amazing. I mean, granted, I was 18, but still, like, I was like 18 the month prior to that too. I didn't realize how bad I was performing and how bad I was feeling until I made that switch. And to this day, I cannot eat more than like half a donut without getting my stomach all jacked up, because I'm just like, I don't know, whatever it was. So it's like they don't even know. And I think that's super important too. Is like, I don't feel that bad. Okay, well, let's try changing some small things and see how much better we do feel.
Right. Like, that's what organic feedback that is, man. Like, that's fantastic. How you feel like that. Like, if that's not the number, I mean, looks great, but like, how am I physically feeling from the way I'm eating and working out and sleeping? Those three things. It's those three entities. Like, one of those things, if you're not feeling great, aside from having just regular sickness, like, what's going on? Like, let's talk about it. It's those three things. As you know, it's all simple. It's not easy, but it's all really simple stuff to tackle.
Yeah, and it's like people get caught up in the scale and the inches and stuff like that. And while those are easy metrics to measure and track, I think sometimes they get caught up in that and they get lost in that, when the more important metric might be, hey, like, when you wake up, scale of 1 to 10, write down how you're feeling. And when you're working out, or when you're after your workout, scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? Before you go to bed, 1 to 10, how are you feeling? And let's track those metrics, because sometimes it's not all in the pictures or the weight or the inches that you've lost, but it's like, hey, I was averaging a 4. Now I'm at a 7 because I've added water and I've added eating breakfast. So sometimes it's easier or better to measure those metrics of feeling, and it helps you be more intuitive.
Right. I always tell my nutrition clients, I'm like, imagine if you never got on an InBody or you never got on a scale. How would you know? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, how do you feel? How are you
Mm-hmm.
performing? How's your attitude? Right. How's your demeanor towards like your family or your work or whatever? Like that's feedback, you know? So I always like to say, like, this is just, you said metrics. I use the word data. This is just data. You know, the scale, the InBody, all that. It's just data. If you didn't have it, what would you do? You would just go off of how you feel, how you look, how you feel in your clothing. How's your skin look?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all that stuff. Organic feedback from these natural things we all should be doing.
100%. Agree 100%. So kind of wrapping things up a little bit. I know
this is too much fun. This is too much fun.
I know we could go on forever, and I'm sure we'll have you on again. We can talk about more specific nutrition stuff. I definitely want to dive into like the process of opening a gym and all that stuff, like, because that's a whole nother challenge that you had to face. But I know you read, and I've lent you some books, and you've recommended some books back to me. So do you have a couple books that like are top of mind that like really had the most impact on you?
Yeah. So I really, when I was going through some tough times, I really enjoy Ryan Holiday a lot. So the biggest game changer was a Discipline is Destiny. And I think that is my number one that really changed how I looked at, moderation, right? And what am I doing? What am I putting my efforts into? How am I living my life? So that book, the stories that I read on that, and just the quotes, and um, just all the cardinal virtues in general of a human being. Like, but Discipline and Destiny discipline is about just having a moderate approach to life, right? And it really helped me kind of really set my mind. So Discipline and Destiny is definitely number one. Number two, I would say we actually talked about it, is The Alchemist was really good when I was a kid. So we talked about that in the gym, I think this week or last. I think that is such a great, easy read, that makes you really rethink just how you're living your life. And it's not the end, but it's the journey, right, along the way. And I'm going to say one of my favorite books too. It's one I read to my kids, but it's kind of funny, but there's a book that's called Big Red Barn. It's a kid's book, but it's not it's not a read. I'm not like recommending it to solve your life, but I remember just like sitting there reading that book, and it has such a softness to it and an ease to it. And I think that's part of the reason why I got into writing my books, because we didn't talk about that I wrote children's books, but like there was something about that children's book and how it really segued into the evening of like being on a barn, and it was about simple living. And it just is like the quietness of like animals and how like easygoing they are. And it's just, that's my like favorite kids book that I love to read to my kids. So, as far as like those two, The Alchemist and Discipline is Destiny, but then I have to throw one of the books I read to my kids when they were younger. It just holds a special place in my heart, to them. So those are the three. You don't have to read Big Red Barn to like find life's meaning. But those other two I definitely recommend for sure if you like need to really kind of figure some things out. But another Ryan Holiday book actually is really good. It's called Stillness is the Key. That's another really good one by Ryan Holiday. I like that one a lot too. So if I were to take away the kids book, I would put in Stillness is the Key as his other book, because I really like his stoic approach to life. And he's a dad and just late 30s, just kind of figuring it out just like the rest of us.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I appreciate those. I'll have to check. I think one or two, the one we talked about, but the other two I'll definitely check out. I've read some of other Ryan Holiday stuff, and it's good. So definitely like that. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. So you mentioned your book. Do you want to give that a plug at all? Do you want to say, how to get in touch with you and order it or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind. So I love Christmas. Like, I love Christmas time, that. And I have two kids' books. One's called This Snowman, and the other one's called I had a little Christmas tree, and they're Christmas nursery rhyme books that have a sing along. And when you QR code the sing along within the book, it takes you to a sing along on YouTube. So it's geared to like 1 to 10-year-olds. And it's just like a fun little, like, I took classic nursery rhymes. You have one. I took classic nursery rhymes and I put Christmas themes on them all. So they're all like Christmas music to the same tunes as nursery rhymes. So I go to craft fairs and I sell them and stuff. So, you can look them up on, they're on Amazon, but I don't want you to order from Amazon. So you could just, maybe Zach, you can put my contact info up and they can email me if they want me to send them a book. I think that's the best way. But if you have a 1 to 10-year-old, this is special stuff. It's very innovative and it's never been done before. So, and it's all original lyrics. There's no AI and there's nothing generated from the internet. So it's all my own words. So thank you for allowing me to plug that. That's cool.
Absolutely,
Another side of Barry, writing Christmas books for kids. So,
yeah. And like you said, I'll include all that information, best way to get in contact with you, order it, all that stuff in the show notes. But yeah, cool. No, thanks. This was awesome. I knew it was going to be a good conversation because I've been forever. I'll definitely have to have you back on. We can dive into some other topics, areas. But yeah, please. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, man. All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Yep.